it's quite difficult for researchers to get enthusiastic about getting ethical clearance sometimes, because it's a long-winded process, at least in the university sector. Quite bureaucratic, lots of form filling in. I suppose my learning was that it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It can be a learning experience, a positive experience for all involved.
Ethics shouldn't stand in the way of doing a good project, but rather a good project should fundamentally embrace the best ethics practice in order to make sure it's meeting all of that.
The communication style that we used in the project was very much the written formal style. So we wrote a letter to projects, which was sent by email. And this often resulted in a kind of follow-up phone call to the program manager, querying some of the points. So with hindsight, I think it would have been very good actually to have had a Zoom meeting or something equivalent with members of the project and the ethics committee to really talk through and to check that we were talking the same language.
And I think going forward, there are definitely improvements for the ethics committee in terms of how we communicate with organisations and with disabled people. So I think certainly video communication, maybe considering how we could provide short guides online, in easy read format, in sign language versions. And those are conversations that can be had and which should be had with other organisations and with disabled people themselves. What would they have found useful from us, rather than us kind of dictating the process?
There's often a feeling that written communication is unambiguous with these things, and you need it as a formal record. Well, you do need it as a formal record, but nevertheless, the most effective interactions seem to be when we had a dialogue with people.
I attended a meeting of the ethics committee when they met in Edinburgh, and that was a chance committee when they made an update on the project and tell them about an update for approval for at the next stage. That was really helpful because I was able to talk to them about the project and also ask them about a few issues. And they were really supportive and they allowed space for that discussion and they gave feedback.
Particularly if the third sector is interested in publishing the research in more formal ways, you know, being able to demonstrate that there has been a process of ethical review and approval is actually often, you know, central to having a paper accepted in good journals.
There's a sort of subtle difference between making sure that your research is ethical and proving that it's ethical. Because it's very rare that an organisation would set out to do something that wasn't ethical. You know, most community organisations would have ethics actually at the absolute front of what they wanted to do. They would be absolutely clear that they didn't want to abuse people's time or give away their information or breach confidentiality. No, voluntary organisations and organisations in the third sector know all that because they're dealing with that every day. What they are perhaps less good at is being able to say, well, here's how we can show this in terms of having filled in a form and saying, right, so if somebody in the future says to us, when you did that research, was it ethical? You can say, well, yes, because we did this and we did that and we did the next thing. And so we did our very best to make sure that it was ethical.
It's much more difficult, I think, for third sector researchers to get access to information about ethics and the kind of sounding boards that you would have in the university sector. It is common practice in the university sector to get ethical approval for research to ensure that participants are not harmed in the research. But in the third sector, it's very uncommon.
the main recommendation from this experience for researchers in the third sector who are concerned to maintain ethical practice is to create a forum with dedicated time for that purpose. There are always competing demands on our time, but having a few hours, even if it's a few times a year, to really focus on some clear examples of things that you've been involved with and to discuss them, just is such a fantastic learning opportunity.
Ideally, I would really like to see some kind of a UK-wide ethics hub that academics and third sector organisations could work on together, a way in which this process could continue. But in the short term, my hope is that everyone involved has learned from it and will begin to see research a bit differently. There are pockets where people are doing research differently and are working on more co-produced projects for sure. But I think we need to make that more consistent by sharing our learning, by highlighting the benefits of co-produced research, especially in terms of impact